Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to learn about the Companies Act 2013, especially for competitive exams. And this content has been created by NAC to Educate. Excellence is the hallmark of success. First and foremost, is the Companies Act important for competitive exams? If you're enrolled in professional courses like Chartered Accountancy (CA), Company Secretary (CS), or Cost Accountancy (CMA, then I cannot highlight the importance of the Companies Act further. This is the one-stop shop for people like you. However, at the same time, for any of you, even if you're engineers or you're non-commerce graduates, but you intend to work in the government and you've applied for jobs in regulatory bodies like SEBI, RBI, NABARD, or NPS, or you've applied in any PSU or government corporation through the legal or account stream, then these sets of videos are extremely important for you guys and will help you a lot especially during your revision and to build your basics. Alright, first things first, I'll begin with the applicability as given in section 1. The Companies Act 2013 extends to the whole of India and it is applicable to the following types of companies. Companies incorporated under this act, which is quite straightforward. This means that any company which has been incorporated or registered under the Companies Act 2013 is a company as per the definition. Also, if any company has been incorporated or registered under any previous company law, like let's take an example of an older company, let's say ITC or Godrej or even Reliance, they would all have been registered at a time much before the Companies Act 2013. So therefore, they would be considered as companies which have been registered or incorporated under a previous company law. Coming to point number 2, insurance companies, banking, electricity companies, companies governed by special acts, and body corporates. All of them are also subject to the provisions, or they have to comply with the provisions of the Companies Act. But there's a small asterisk over here. Now, why did I put this asterisk? It means this statement that I've put at the bottom of the slide, it seems very complicated. Let me simplify things for you. All these companies have certain regulations which govern them. For example, a banking company, let's say HDFC Bank, is regulated by the RBI through the Banking Regulation Act of 1949. Now, this act may have certain provisions which are not in line with the provisions contained in the Companies Act 2013. So, if such a situation is encountered, then what should the bank do? Should they comply with the Banking Regulation Act or should they comply with the Companies Act? Because it is a company also at the same time. So the answer here has been given clearly in the Companies Act itself, that in that case they have to comply with the regulations or the acts that have been given or specified by the industry. So they have to comply with the Banking Regulation Act. Moving on to the next topic, what is a company? Now this may sound like a very trivial question. Everybody knows what a company is. We may say that, well, it's basically a form of an organization which carries on business activities and works for profit. For example, Reliance Industries Limited, ITC, Hindustan Unilever Limited, Britannia, and so on and so forth. You're completely right. But is this the meaning that is given to it in the Companies Act? Well, the definition given in the Companies Act is slightly different and quite exhaustive in nature. Let me walk you through. Section 2 subsection 20 of the Companies Act 2013 states that a company means a company incorporated under this act or under any other previous company law. Now I have explained this concept to you in the previous slide. So what does this concept of the previous company law exactly mean? Let me elaborate on that now. It means that any entity that is registered or incorporated under the Companies Act 2013, that is this act, or 1956, the Companies Act 1956, or any other previous company laws. Now you may be surprised to know that there were plenty of company laws or laws that governed corporate structures even before the Companies Act 1956. One of them was the Companies Act of 1913, and one to name a few. Now, why don't we do a little concept check to understand as to how much we have understood this topic. All right. Now, I have three questions over here. My first question is Britannia Industries a company under the definition of the Companies Act 2013? Number two, is HDFC Bank a company under the Companies Act 2013? And number three, is Deloitte a company under the Companies Act 2013? So let's begin with the first answer. Is Britannia Industry Limited a company? Yes, obviously, because it's been incorporated not under this act specifically, but under a previous company law. So as per the definition, yes, it is a company. Now, let's move to the next one. Is HDFC Bank a company? Yes, again, it is a company. It will fall under being incorporated under a previous company law. In addition to this, since it's a bank, it will be regulated by the Reserve Bank of India, and it is required to be registered under the Banking Regulation Act of 1949 as well. You also might know that HDFC Bank is what they call a scheduled commercial bank. Now, moving on to the third question, and this is a good question. Is Deloitte, or let me say maybe even PwC, a company? Well, the answer to this question is no. And the reason for that is that Deloitte, for example, functions as Deloitte Haskins LLP in India. And the name itself suggests that it's got the name or the suffix of an LLP at the end of its name. What does LLP stand for? It stands for Limited Liability Partnership. So in effect, it's a partnership. It's not a company. That's the reason why these firms like PwC or Deloitte or any of the big fours, they function as partnerships. They have partners. They do not have directors. And they also do not have a board that we commonly know, or the board of directors that we see in companies. You'll only have partners. Okay guys, let's move to the next topic. What is a foreign company? The Act defines a foreign company as any company or even a body corporate which is incorporated outside India, which has a place of business in India, whether on its own, that is by itself, or through an agent. This could be either physically or through electronic mode, and it should satisfy one more condition. It conducts business activity, any business activity, provided it's legal and permitted in India in any other manner. This means that if I take a company like Apple, Apple would be a foreign company in the Indian context, in the context of the Companies Act. So why should we know how to classify a foreign company? The reason for this is that there are certain provisions of the Companies Act 2013 which apply only to foreign companies. Also, the manner in which certain provisions apply is different in case of foreign companies. Moving on to the next topic, a government company. So what is a government company defined as per the Act? It means any company in which not less than 51% of the paid up share capital is held by the central government or by any state government or governments. That means by multiple state governments can also hold 51% or more of the paid up share capital. Then also it's a government company. Or it's partly held by the central government and partly by one or more state governments. And there's one more exception, you could say a qualification to this. It includes a company which is a subsidiary company of such a government company. So what does this mean? It means that even a company which by nature, if you look at it, is not a government company, not 51% of the stake in that company X is not owned by the central government or any state government or a combination of them. But even then, it is a government company. How can that be possible? Because of this. Its parent company, if it is a government company, then even the subsidiary becomes a government company. I've made this infographic over here to explain this a little better, and this will help a lot to revise this topic. So at least 51% of the paid up share capital is held by the central government, state government or governments, which means multiple, could be multiple, partly by the center and partly by state or state governments. For example, you have most of the gas companies and oil companies in India, BPCL, IOCL, HPCL, GAIL, Coal India Limited, etc. All of them are government companies. Now, as I've spoken earlier, the subsidiary of a government company is also considered to be a government company. So, what is a subsidiary in the first place? Now, to understand that, we need to understand the relationship between the subsidiary company and a holding company. A holding company is what you would probably call a parent company in common parlance. For example, a common example of this is Google. Its parent company happens to be a company called Alphabet Incorporated. Now, as per the Companies Act 2013, there is a proper definition which is given that explains the relationship between a holding company and a subsidiary. So basically, a holding company is a company that controls the composition of the board of directors or exercises or controls more than one half of the total voting power, either at its own or together with one or more of its subsidiary companies. Now, what does this mean? Now, if we look at the first statement, controls the composition of the board of directors. I've put a star mark over here. This star mark indicates this. The composition of a company's board of directors shall be deemed to be controlled by another company if that other company, by exercise of whatever power is exercisable by it, can appoint or remove all the directors or a majority of the directors. So in simple terms, it means that if there is a company X, it holds a certain amount of stake in company Y. The number of directors on the board of company Y happens to be 5. So if company X, which is supposed to be the holding company, can remove all 5 of the directors, or can appoint all 5 of the directors, or can even appoint a majority, which means more than 2.5, so that means 3. If it can appoint 3 or more directors, then it would be considered a holding company. Of course, now the second statement exercises or controls more than one half of the total voting power, either at its own or together with one or more of its subsidiary companies. Again, there is a slight additional aspect to this. So this additional aspect, I've highlighted this over here and put it in the black box. A company shall be deemed to be a subsidiary company of a holding company even if the control referred to above is of another subsidiary of the holding company. So this is a very important point. So basically it means that suppose company X has a certain amount of holding in company Y. It need not have that stake in total only by itself. It can have that holding together with its other subsidiaries as well. Even in that case, it would be considered as a subsidiary company. Company Y would be a subsidiary. Now, this may seem a little complicated, so why don't we get a better understanding of this through a concept check? Now, I've put together a few questions over here. This will clear up this topic very well. So let's consider these statements. Company X holds 85% of the share capital of company Y. So 85% of the share capital. Now generally what happens is if anybody holds 51% or more, they are considered to have ownership stake in the company. So it's satisfying that condition. So obviously in that condition would be satisfied and company X is the holding company of company Y. Second, company X holds 47%. Mind you, this is 47% of the company Y. Additionally, company Z holds 5%. Which company? Company Z holds 5% of the share capital of company Y. So that's a total of 52% held by X and Z. But is there a relationship between X and Z? Yes. It is also mentioned that company X holds 76% stake in company Z. Now, just given alone, these statements would not have made any difference. If I had said that company X holds 47% share capital of company Y, then on its own it is not the holding company X is not the holding company of company Y. Similarly, company Z only holds 5% of company Y, so it is also not on its own the holding company of company Y. But now that we know that company X and company Z are related to each other, in the sense that company X is itself the holding company of company Z, then in that case, obviously, if we apply the second condition as I had mentioned in the previous slide, company X will be a holding company of company Y. Now the third point. Now this third point, it deals with the first statement. What did the first statement say? That a holding company is considered to be a holding company if it can appoint or remove all or a majority of the directors of the company. So in this case, company Y has 5 directors. So what would be the majority of directors? 50% of the directors is 2.5. You can't have 2.5 directors. So the next higher number, whole number, that is 3 directors. So at a minimum, company X should be able to remove or appoint at least 3 directors. Now what is the statement saying? Company X has the power to appoint or remove 3 directors of company Y. It meets that criteria exactly. So even if it said that company Y has the power to remove 4 directors, it would have been a holding company. But what if it said that it had the power to only appoint 2 directors? Would it be a holding company? No. We would need some additional information regarding how much share capital it held in that company. And if nothing is mentioned, then it is not the holding company of company Y. Moving on to the next topic, a very important one. What is a private company? So as per the definition in the Companies Act, a company is a private company if it has a minimum paid up capital and the articles prescribe 3 major conditions. 1, 2 and 3. So the first one is restricts the right to transfer its shares. So what does this mean? It means that it's very simple, and it means that basically a member of the company, a person who holds the shares of a private company, cannot transfer it to some outsider. That's what it means, that it restricts the right to transfer its shares. Condition 2, except in case of an OPC, the limit of members will be 200. So in case of a private company, the number of members can be a maximum of 200, and there are certain additional points related to this as well. Now firstly, let me clarify what an OPC is. An OPC is nothing but a one-person company, and it means that there is only one member in that company. I have spoken about an OPC later on in this presentation as well, so we'll be dealing with that a little later. Now first, let's deal with the additional points related to the limit on how to compute this amount of 200. So firstly, joint shareholders shall be considered to be one share. This is a very important point. This means that if there happen to be 10 members, and out of them there are two shareholders who are holding one share, they are holding shares jointly, then it will be considered as one share. So that means that will be computed only as 9 shareholders, although there may be 10 members or 10 shareholders in person. Second, the persons in employment of the company, whoever is an employee of the company, will be excluded from this company while computing this limit of 200. And third, former employees, not any former employee, but only those former employees who are holding shares and continue to hold shares will be excluded. So only those who are holding shares and continue to hold shares will be excluded. And now coming to the last and the third point, prohibits any invitation to the public to subscribe for any securities of the company. Now what does this basically mean? This very simply put means that you cannot offer the securities of the company for listing. You cannot make an IPO, you cannot make an offer for sale, you cannot sell it in the public to anybody in the public. That is something that only a public company can do. And that is one of the fundamental differences between a private company and a public company. Speaking of public companies, a public company means a company which is not a private company. So we have just discussed what a private company is right now. Secondly, it has a minimum paid up share capital as may be prescribed, provided that a company which is a subsidiary of a company, not being a private company, shall be deemed to be a public company for the purposes of this act, even where such subsidiary company continues to be a private company in its articles. So this is again going back to that concept. Even if a subsidiary company, as per its rules, has the restrictions as per its articles, it has those restrictions or conditions that I mentioned before, the 3 conditions that force it to be a private company will be invalidated, and it shall be considered to be a public company if the holding company is a public company. Now I've already discussed before how a company becomes the holding company of a subsidiary company. We discussed that in detail, so I'm not going to elaborate much more on that. Now coming to a one-person company, I had mentioned this in that slide as well. A slight reference to a one-person company had come in one of the points. On the point regarding the number of members, the number of members in a private company happens to be 200, the limit on the number of members. So why did it say that except in case of a one-person company? That is because a one-person company by definition itself is a company which has only one member or one person as its member. So when there's only one person as a member, then in that case there is no question of there being 200 members, right? Coming to the last topic, friends, what is a small company? So there are basically two major conditions to be satisfied for this purpose. One is paid up share capital, where it should not exceed 50 lakh rupees or the higher prescribed amount, that is 10 crores. And turnover as per the profit and loss account for the immediately preceding financial year. It doesn't exceed 2 crores or a higher amount, that is 100 crores. Now what does this "and" mean? This has a lot of significance. It means that both these conditions, 1 and 2, need to be satisfied for a company to be a small company. There are certain exceptions. These are: a company will not be classified as a small company if it is a holding company or a subsidiary company. I've discussed this in detail in one of the previous slides. Again, it will not apply to a not-for-profit company which is registered under Section 8. For example, there are many companies that are set up to carry out charitable activities. Those companies will not be considered as small companies. And thirdly, any company or body corporate governed by any special act will not be classified as a small company. That's all, friends. That's all for this presentation. And if you liked my content, then please do like, share and subscribe to my channel, Knack to Educate. Thank you and stay tuned for more updates.